go. Okay. So the eye is also an important part of the Khamsa, and I will get into it later in my lecture. The hand as guards, we can see them also in entrance to houses, even if it's not specifically the Khamsa or the Jewish symbols or Islamic symbol for protection. It's also common in different culture and beliefs. The gestures. So the gesture is also very important because hands are tools to communicate, not only to protect or to give you luck. It also depends what kind of gesture do you do with your hand. And it's a way to communicate, and it's beyond culture and it's beyond languages. You can communicate with, you can imagine to yourself what each finger can represent. And this kind of gesture, the three fingers, are the way that priests, Jewish priests, blessing the audience in synagogue on Saturdays morning and in holidays. And it's like a symbol of blessing. We can recognize how it's go back to the popular culture in Star Trek, and they kind of took this gesture to represent, like to say hello to each other, but it actually was taken from a very, very old tradition of Jewish people. The gesture of the hand is also representing a language, and the letter Shin. The Shin represents God, and because it's the name of God Shaddai, it also represents one chapter that Shema Israel, that is it's a chapter that you say from the Bible that you say to protect yourself or to call God for help. Language is a thing that I'm touching a lot because in Hebrew, I don't know if some of you are familiar, in Hebrew, every word is gendered and every pronoun need to be specific pronunciation. We don't have the option to say them, they, and every verb and every noun need to be, you pronounce it for a specific person. So God is of course male, and in the mainstream way of calling to God, and the audience, Israel, is all the time a parallel man. And when I thinking about Shema Israel, I'm more thinking about Shim Israel because I want to refer to include a big part of the population that it's like the female or the non-binary population that is part of the ritual and the culture also. As a child that grow up in a place that you know that the culture is part of you, but you just been excluded all the time, and it started from the language. So design changing awareness and discourse, but also the way we use words changing discourse. And it's something that I'm touching in my work also. So the letter Shin that represent God is also influence design, Jewish design. So the menorah is like a good example for how the letter influence the design of spiritual objects that represent Judaism. This is mezuzah. It's also a spiritual object that Jewish people, if you live in Brooklyn and your owner is ultra-Orthodox Jewish, you will probably have it in your home. It's like a box that has a calf inside with Shema Israel, Shim Israel, the text that is like from the Bible that calls for help from God. And the Shin is representing God also. So all of those icons and a spiritual object are a big influence to me when I'm thinking about creating my own language and iconography of queer Jewish point of view. As a gesture also in other culture, this is like the Greek Christianity. This is how Jesus blessing the people. And the blessing is also representing his initial and the Holy Trinity. So this is exactly what I'm doing. This is part of my sketches in my sketchbook. I'm thinking about all of those symbols, the mezuzah, the hamsa, and the text, and trying to combine to a new language that is genderless. And I'm looking for those symbols that has no specific gender or specific race or specific specification, but it's specific enough to connect me to the culture I'm coming from. Because I believe that the Judaism needs to be developed like everything else, like during those years, like during so many years, the world changing and things shifted, and we know so many things we didn't know in the past. So also the approach to God and approach to Jewish culture needs to be different. And this is my approach. When I came here, I see different kind of Judaism in United States that is much more progressive than what I see in Israel. There is more Jewish queer groups that I met, and I was very happy to meet those communities. But because of the lack of the language, people continue to refer God as male and the audience as parallel men. And this is like a thing that needs to be changed, like the way we change in the language, how we think about God. I think about it as like non-binary, genderless, very, very abstract. And how can you shape it? It's a question, because I'm working with visuals. So how can I shape something that has no body? It's something that a lot of Jewish was thinking about it through the history. So another aspect that I'm touching is about sexuality, and spirituality and sexuality are coming together, as I believe like there is a way of thinking about sexuality as a thing that that is like the opposite, but actually I believe that those separation is a binary separation, and it's all coming together. And this is also again thinking about the eye of the evil eye. I'm thinking about vulva eye and lips that have the same abstract shape, and I'm trying all the time to look for something that will be in between, and to try to combine those places of that things can be working together in the same time. Also, when I'm working with those three shapes, I'm thinking about how God can be part of. Sorry, I got confused. 1 second. How God can be pronounced in a different way, because in Hebrew I feel that I'm very limited. Unfortunately, only in the last couple of years, people are trying to change the way the written Hebrew will be inclusive for non-binary or discourse, because everything is or male or female in the text. And in the spoken Hebrew, it's even harder. So I couldn't find yet the way, but I'm still looking for a way to represent God in a way that will be talking to both gender and non-gender at the same time. In the text here, it's written "Betzalma kedmuta," that means in English, in the image of God, which means no specification of gender. But when we say it, "Betzalmo kedmuto," which is the original text, it's saying in His image. And if we think about ourselves as in the image of God, it needs to be something that is more inclusive. And I'm very influenced, of course, from Judy Chicago and all the movement of the central pole imagery from the late 70s. They started the reclaiming the woman body through the core imagery, which is um, thinking about woman's body from a point of view of woman artists. Of course, we are in different paths and with different kind of discourse, but Judy and some other artists really put a big influence for starting and thinking about my work today. This is more contemporary artist, Rachel House. And what I really liked about this poster, protect us from the virus, from those who respond to male violence by insisting that women's behavior is responsible. I'm saying they are using symbols and that are taken from popular culture, Western culture, and maybe more Islamic and Jewish culture, and creating a kind of a hybrid poster and talking about combining fights. And so the virus is something we need to fight against. And being like queer or like contemporary Jewish, for me, the values to like social justice and racial justice is part of the values of being Jewish. And this is what we aim to, the new Judaism needs to be. In my point of view, as a queer Jewish and as a maker. So this is some tests that I did. It's a patch that I make with a laser cutter here in Makerspace. I make those patches of these talismans that are sexual but non-gendered, and they are also spiritual for me. And I assemble them together. Almost like a camouflage, which is also a protection way of visual language. And also I'm asking about multiple protector instead of one protector, and what are the meaning of them, and their spirituality and sexuality at the same time. So these are some tests that I did. And like I talked before, the language something needs to happen with the language. In English, it's started happening. In Hebrew, we still have a work. And this is a work that I did. It's part of the show also. So if you're in Brooklyn, you are welcome to stop by and see. It said, "She will protect you." It's actually from the chapter of Shema Israel, Shim'i Israel, Yevarchecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, and I changed only one letter to, instead of you, they changed it to Taf. That means Tishmerech, she will protect you, and referring to female or male. But God, I refer to God as a female figure. The reason is also that as a woman, when I look at protect something that spirituality for me, or someone that will protect me, God is all my life, it's been like the old white guy, and I actually looking for a different kind of protector. Now when I actually know that unfortunately the people that hurt us women and queer and non-binary people mostly are men. So how come that they will be also the representation of guards? And I want my guards to be non-binary. I want them to be people of color, and I want them to be female, I guess. So protections, icons, like the way the protection is represented in I guess more Western culture, is very practical. In garments, there is very specific visual language for garments, that the aim of the whole garment is to protect, and every choice of material and buckle and any kind of stitch or finish is for protection, and or for other function. And I'm interested in taking the function out, but keeping the visual protection, and then to take it from something that is very practical to something that is spiritual. And this is how I kind of combined and started. This is a project called Protection Wall I did in 2019. And it's a start that I worked with an embroidery, CNC embroidery machine, which I layered inside a couple of fabric and then cut out some of them and tried different things. And the shapes are from talisman or from pubic wigs, maxi pads, Hamsa, of course, and they're all hanged on the wall for protection, spiritual protection or practical protection. And I tried fair and I tried terry cloth. And this was like the beginning of thinking about how to quilt and to make soft object with a CNC embroidery machine. My techniques are not specifically only computerized. I worked with different kind of machines. I work with a sewing machine. I hand embroidery and I hand tufting, but I also use the embroidery as a tool. Embroidery is a CNC embroidery machine as a tool because I think it's something about the way it's made like a merchandise is also part of the story of what I'm trying to look for. So this is a project that is now showing advanced protection at Makerspace on the windows. And they're all quilted, they are filled inside with a sheet of polyfill. And they are, in this case, they're all from the same material with different colors of threads because I tried to create like kind of camouflage quality into it. The vest outfit that I made is influenced by the life vest that is to save your life in case you're in a boat or an airplane. And I made it from wool, so the function is not there. And I also worked on the material itself, like free-handed on the sewing machine. It's not the CNC, it's me free-handing on it to make this kind of quality of camouflage again. And this is a second guard, which is the same thinking about protection outfit. This is another technique I tried. I'm still developing. It's working with garments that I'm taking apart and combining them as patch and then embroidery on it. And this is a technique in the embroidery machine, but it's a different kind of stitch. It's a running stitch. And I want to move to the other part of the lecture. But before, I will just read you a song. It's called Personal Jesus by words by Martin Gore. Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares, your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. And I think that the discourse I'm talking about is not something that is like something that I'm touching. Like I feel that I'm influenced by so many cultures, and it's not only the place they're coming from, it's also the place I'm present now, which is Brooklyn, and the popular culture that is around me. So it's a big part of it. I will go back to the presentation in a minute. I will stop share for a second. And I want to share again. So I want just to expose a little bit because the CNC embroidery machine is a very nice machine. It's not so hard to maintain. And I think it's a great tool for textile artists and even any kind of designer, actually. It's really, I think the language of the embroidery machine can be very like factory and very like merchandise or something that is very has this heavy language. But I believe that through the machine, like I can also take it to a different language and play with it into my own language. And that's what I'm trying to do when I'm working with it. So one second. So this is a design gallery. It's a software that we have here in Makerspace, and it's connected to the embroidery machine. This is a file that I make on Illustrator as a vector, and I open it on Design Gallery. So here you can see all my lines. So I want the lines to be by order, and I'm gonna choose all of them. And I have a couple of options to use the line for. So I will use the satin border. The satin border, I will just change the color so you can see better. One second. So this is a satin border. And I can change, you can really see on the software how it's gonna look like, less or more, in proportion to your object, and how the density will be. You can really control in everything, and also in what kind of pattern you're gonna have. So this is the line outside. I choose satin border because it's finished the material, and then I can cut on the edge. The second one that I will show you now will be the fill. I can fill it inside. And just change the color, something lighter. I don't know if you can see it, but I can really control which kind of texture do I want inside. I'm teaching here the embroidery machine for everyone. Like, you can book a lesson with me, or if you know how to use it, you can come to Makerspace and work on the machine. I think it's an amazing tool, and it's not very common to find it. So this is the filling that I chose. And the last one will be the eyelashes of the pad. Which I will do a running stitch, which is another kind of stitch, which is more delicate and more reminds the way that regular sewing machine will work. You can really change which kind of stitch do you want. So this is my design, and this is how it's gonna look, less or more. Here we can see also a demo, how it's gonna run. So the software will really show me the order of the making, which is very important to make it easy to the machine. After I finish to put the order that I want of each line in my design, and the colors that I want, and the design of the stitches, every material will behave differently also. So it's something that we need to be aware of when we come to the machine. We need to do a lot of tests, which I did with my materials, because every time it's just behave differently, and the tension you need to be managed according to your material. So now I'll show you some videos. So this is how the machine looks like, and we have, how much do we have? 10 colors, yeah, 10 colors, and that can be changed whenever you want. And this is how the needles are working. and you can combine like all 10 colors if you want. I usually work with 3 or 4, but it's possible to work with all the colors. And the machine will work with one color and then will cut the thread and go over to the other color. It's a very cool machine. So this is how the running stitch is working. This material is it's 3 layers. It's 2 woven materials, and inside I put the polyfill, and the machine able to push through it like a quilt, which is a quality which I really like, and I think brings some dimensional to the fabric, and eventually when I make garments from it, it's make it like have more tactile life, and it's something that I'm looking for when I'm doing it. 1 second. So this is what I'm doing after I'm making the file. I need to make the hoop in the right size to my file. So here it's 3 layers and the polyfill in the middle. And here I'm pushing. It was very hard to do it because it's a lot of layers. But it's very important to work to push it very strong inside and to take care that it's like almost like a drum in the back. This is how the machine works, the computer of the machine. I choose my file, and then I choose a hoop that I want to work with, and then the embroidery is ready to go. And here is another video that I did with a machine. I control the order of the things, so also the order is important. I'm starting, sometimes I want to start from the line that is outside, and then I want to start from the inside. It really depends on the project. I found out that if I start from outside, it makes it more puffy from the inside than the other direction. And this is another video. So after I take it out of the machine, which you will see very soon, let's keep this one. I taken it out of the machine, and then I need to cut it out, and take it out, and then I have it on the fabric, and by hand I'm cutting out all the fabric around. Sometimes when I work with layers, I'm cutting in the middle or in other parts that I want. Okay, so I think this is the end of my presentation. So if you have questions or thoughts, I will be happy to hear, even if it's not in front of everybody. And thank you so much for coming today. Thank you, everyone. There is one question here. What program did you use to create the files? I work with Illustrator, and then I save it as SVG file. And here in Makerspace, we have the design gallery, which is a software that connected to the machine. And I open it, I just import it to the design gallery. Is there an importance to left or right hand for the talisman? No, that I know of. I know that the Khamsa, the original Khamsa, the hand is not left or right because it has two thumbs, which is like a hybrid of two hands. There is no specific importance to left or right. The priests in the synagogue are blessing with the two hands. The brand of the embroidery machine is Baby Lock. How you tie the conceptual, philosophical, historical, and cultural with textile processes to result in interesting and beautiful work. Thank you, Jesse. And textiles, for me, are materials that it has like a direct connection to the body, and garments has connection that is very close to the body, and also these charms are things that are worn on the body, and this is like, I think, what's tie everything together for me, because I see myself, when I started learning, I just loved textile and I loved fashion, but through the time I understand that I wanted more than this, and understanding the design responsibilities that coming with you making, it's something that make me think about how to make things differently. And I see that textile has like very, very strong ability to influence people and touch people, because it's part of our life. Like every single moment we are in touch with textiles. And I think art and design need to touch people, and that's what drives me and make me think about it all the time. Is it easy to thread the machine? It's not hard. Like it just needs the practice. If you will come to Makerspace, I can show you how to do it. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too many details because it's very hard with a camera to do all of this. And there is a lot of importance to the tactile feeling, because what I will show you in the video, you will probably can find on YouTube. And I think it's important to touch it and feel it. So I wanted to give you a hint and feeling of how my process is working and how the machine is working, but it's not a real lesson of how to operate the machine. The reason I use a machine, I'm working with hand technique and with the machine because the machine allow me to test and do things a lot and fast. And the multiple is like something that is important as my process on the talismans themselves. and I would be able to do it by hand, but the process of the manufacture is part of the language that I'm looking for. So this is why I'm working with a CNC embroidery, and I have the access to it, and it's a privilege, and it's amazing that I have this kind of opportunity to use it. Okay, I think that it is. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.